Good evening, everyone. It's been quite some time since I posted. Um, we got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. I'm kind of just going to give the sum. I know I've been promising to do these emerald tablets for quite a long time now. A lot of you have sent me messages, and I appreciate the messages that people have been sending. That are concerned and you know. Basically, let's just get to it. There's a lot of stuff to cover, so we're gonna do the emerald tablets, and these were pivotal in my understanding of a couple things. And I'm gonna read the preface here, and we're gonna go over a couple things so people understand some things. All right. The history of the tablets translated in the following pages is strange and beyond the belief of modern scientists. Their antiquity is stupendous, dating back some 36,000 years BC. The writer is Thoth, an Atlantean priest king who founded a colony in ancient Egypt after the sinking of the mother country. He was the builder of the Great Pyramid of Giza, erroneously attributed to Cheops, and in it he incorporated his knowledge of ancient wisdom and also securely secreted the records and instruments of ancient Atlantis. For some 16,000 years, he ruled the ancient race of Egypt from approximately 52,000 BC to 36,000 BC. At that time, the ancient barbarous race among which he and his followers had settled had been raised to a high degree of civilization. Thos was an immortal, that is, he had conquered death, passing only when he willed it, and even not then through death. His vast wisdom made him ruler over the various Atlantean colonies, including the ones in South and Central America. When the time came for him to leave Egypt, he erected the Great Pyramid over the entrance to the great halls of Amenti, placed in it his records, and appointed guards for his secrets from among the highest of his people. In later times, the descendants of these guards became the pyramid priests, by which Thoth was deified as the god of wisdom, the recorder by those in the Age of Darkness which followed his passing. In legend, the halls of Amenti became the underworld, the halls of the gods, where the soul passed after death for judgment. During later ages, the ego of Thoth passed into the bodies of men in the manner described in the tablets. As such, he incarnated 3 times in his last being, known as Hermes, the thrice born. In this incarnation, he left the writings known to modern occultists as the Emerald Tablets, a later and far lesser exposition of the ancient mysteries. The tablets translated in this work are 10, which were left in the Great Pyramid in the custody of the pyramid priests. The 10 are divided into 13 parts for the sake of convenience. The last 2 are so great and far reaching their importance that the present is forbidden to release them to the world at large. However, in those contained herein are secrets which will prove of inestimable value to the serious student. They should be read not once, but 100 times, for only thus can the true meaning be revealed. A casual reading will perhaps give glimpses of beauty, but more intensive study will open avenues of wisdom to the seeker. But now, a word as to how these mighty secrets came to be revealed to modern man after being hidden so long. Some 1300 years BC, Egypt, the ancient Kem, was in turmoil, and many delegations of priests were sent to other parts of the world. Among those were some of the pyramid priests who carried with them the emerald tablets as a talisman by which they could exercise authority over the less advanced priestcraft of races descending from the other Atlantean colonies. The tablets were understood from legend to give their bearer authority from Thoth. The particular group of priests bearing the tablets immigrated to South America, where they found a flourishing race, the Mayas, who remembered much of the ancient wisdom. Among these, the priests settled and remained. In the 10th century, the Mayas had thoroughly settled the Yucatan, and the tablets were placed beneath the altar of one of the great temples of the sun god. After the conquest of the Mayas by the Spaniards, the cities were abandoned and the treasures of the temples forgotten. It should be understood that the Great Pyramid of Egypt has been and still is a temple of initiation into the mysteries. Jesus, Solomon, Apollonius, and others were initiated there. The writer, who has connection with the Great White Lodge, remember that, which also works to the pyramid priesthood, was instructed to recover and to return the Great Pyramid, the ancient tablets. This, after adventures which need not be detailed here, was accomplished. Before returning them, he was given permission to translate and retain a copy of the wisdom engraved on the tablets. This was done in 1925, and only now has permission been given for part of it to be published. It is expected that many will scoff, yet the true student will read between the lines and gain wisdom. If the light is in you, the light which is engraved in these tablets will respond. Now a word as to the material aspect of the tablets. They consist of 12 tablets of emerald green formed from a substance created through alchemical transmutation. They are imperishable, resistant to all elements and substances. In effect, the atomic and cellular structure is fixed, no change ever taking place. In this respect, they violate the material law of ionization. Upon them are engraved characters in the ancient Atlantean language, characters which respond to attuned thought waves, releasing the associated mental vibrations in the mind of the reader. The tablets are fastened together with hoops of golden-colored alloy suspended from a rod of the same material. So much for the material appearance. The wisdom contained therein is the foundation of the ancient mysteries, and for the one who reads with open eyes and mind, his wisdom shall be increased 100-fold. Read, believe or not, but read, and the vibration found therein will awake a response in your soul. In the following pages I will reveal some of the mysteries which as yet have only been touched upon lightly either by myself or other teachers or students of truth. Man's search for understanding of the laws which regulate his life has been unending, yet always just beyond the veil which shields the higher planes from material man's vision the truth has existed, ready to be assimilated by those who enlarge their vision by turning inward, not outward, in their search. In the silence of material senses lies the key to the unveiling of wisdom. He who talks does not know. He who knows does not talk. The highest knowledge is unutterable, for it exists as an entity in lanes which transcend all material words or symbols. If a lot of my followers listen to the language and the words that are being used. All symbols are but keys to doors leading to truths, and many times the door is not opened because the key seems so great that the things which are beyond it are not visible. If we can understand that all keys, all material symbols, are manifestations, are but extensions of great law and truth, we will begin to develop the vision which will enable us to penetrate beyond the veil. All things in all universes move according to law, and the law which regulates the movement of the planets is no more immutable than the law which regulates the material expressions of man. One of the greatest of all cosmic laws is that which is responsible for the formation of man as a material being. The great aim of the mystery schools of all ages has been to reveal the workings of the law which connect man to the material and the man to the spiritual. Connecting link between the material man and the spiritual man is the intellectual man, for the mind partakes of both the material and immaterial qualities. These are going to be the main theme, because for the mind partakes of both the material and immaterial qualities means both the conscious and the subconscious, or two becoming one. Or what I was talking about with dreams combining and all these things the other day. The aspirant for higher knowledge must develop the intellectual side of his nature and so strengthen his will that it is able to concentrate all powers of his being on and in the plane he desires. The great search for light, life, and love only begins on the material plane. Carried to its ultimate, its final goal, its complete oneness with the universal consciousness. The foundation in the material is the first step, then comes the higher goal of spiritual attainment. In the following pages I will give an interpretation of the Emerald Tablets and their secret, hidden, and esoteric meanings. Concealed in the words of Thoth are many of the meanings that do not appear on the surface. Light of knowledge brought to bear upon the tablets will open many new fields for thought. Read and be wise, but only if the light of your own consciousness awakens the deep-seated understanding which is an inherent quality of the soul. This is Book 1, The History. I, Thoth the Atlantean, master of mysteries, keeper of records, mighty king, magician, living from generation to generation, being about to pass in the halls of Amenti, set down for the guidance of those that are here to come after these records of the mighty wisdom of great Atlantis. In the great city of Kior, on the island of Undal, in a time far past, I began this incarceration, same thing. Not as the little men of the present age did, but the mighty ones of Atlantis live and die. Sounds similar to Genesis chapter 6. But rather from aeon to aeon did they renew their life in the halls of Amenti, where the river of life flows eternally onward. I'm going to just give little bits and pieces as I go and kind of narrate, my interpretation of what these mean. That way I don't forget things as they come. 100 times 10 have I descended the dark way that led into the light, and as many times have I descended from the darkness into the light, my strength and power renewed. Now for a time I descend, and the men of Chem is alchemy in ancient Egypt, shall know me no more. But in a time yet unborn will I rise again, mighty and potent, requiring accounting of those left behind me. Then beware, O men of Chem, if ye have falsely betrayed my teachings, for I shall cast ye down from your high estate into the darkness of the caves from whence ye came. Betray not my secrets to the men of the north, or the men of the south, lest my curse fall upon ye. Remember and heed my words, for surely will I return again, and require of thee that which ye guard. Even from beyond time and from beyond death will I return, rewarding or punishing as ye have requited your trust. Great were my people in the ancient days, great beyond the conception of the little people now around me. Knowing the wisdom of old, seeking far within the heart of infinity, knowledge that belonged to the earth's youth. Wise were we with the wisdom of the children of light who dwelt among us. Strong were we with the power drawn from the eternal fire. And all of these, greatest among the children of men, was my father Thotme, keeper of the great temple, link between the children of light, who dwelt within the temple, and the races of men who inhabited the 10 islands. Mouthpiece after the 3 of the dweller of Unal, speaker to the kings with the voice that must be obeyed, the Logos. Grew I there from a child into manhood, being taught by my father the elder mysteries, until a time grew within the fire of wisdom, until in time there grew within the fire of wisdom, until it burst into a consuming flame. Not desired I but the attainment of wisdom, until on a great day the command came from the dweller of the temple that I be brought before him. Few there were among the children of men who had looked upon that mighty face and lived, for not as the sons of men are the children of light when they are not incarnate in a physical body. Chosen was I from the sons of men, taught by the dweller, so that his purpose might be fulfilled, purposes yet unborn in the womb of time. Long ages I dwelt in the temple, learning ever and yet ever more wisdom, until I too approached the light emitted from the great fire. Taught me he the path to Amenti, the underworld, where the great king sits upon his throne of might. Deep I bowed in homage before the lords of life and the lords of death, receiving as my gift the key of life. Deep I bowed, or in other words, being humble, humility, giving your will away, knowing that something else is in control, and following, listening. Free was I of the halls of Amenti, bound not by death to the circle of life. Far to the stars I journeyed until space and time became as naught. Then, having drunk deep of the cup of wisdom, I looked into the hearts of men, and there found I greater mysteries, and was glad. For only in the search for truth could my soul be stilled and the flame within be quenched. Down through the ages I lived, seeing those around me taste of the cup of death and return again in the light of life. Gradually from the kingdoms of Atlantis passed waves of consciousness that had been one with me, only to be replaced by spawns of a lower star. In obedience to the law, the word of the Master grew into flower. Downward into the darkness turned the thoughts of the Atlanteans, until at last, in this wrath, arose from his Aguanti the dweller. This word has no English equivalent. It means a state of detachment. Speaking the word, calling the power. Deep in the earth's heart, the sons of Amenti heard and hearing, directing the changing of the flower of fire that burns eternally, changing and shifting, using the Logos until that great fire changed its direction. Over the world then broke the great waters, drowning and sinking, changing earth's balance until only the temple of light was left, standing on the great mountain of Undal, still rising out of the water. Some there were who were living, safe from the rush of fountains, called to me then the Master, saying, Gather ye my people, take them by the arts ye have learned, far across the waters, until ye reach the land of the hairy barbarians dwelling in caves of the desert. Follow there the plan that ye know of. Gathered I then my people, and entered the great ship of the Master. Upward we rose into the morning. Dark beneath us lay the temple. Suddenly over it rose the waters, vanished from earth, until the time appointed was the great temple. Fast we fled toward the sun of the morning, until beneath us lay the land of the children of Chem. Raging they came with cudgels and spears, lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy the sons of Atlantis. Then raised I my staff and directed a ray of vibration, striking them still in their tracks as fragments of stone of a mountain. Then spoke I to them in words calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis, saying we were the children of the sun and its messengers. Cowed I them by my display of magic science, until at my feet they groveled when I released them. See, this is an account of these heroes of old, men of renown, that it speaks of in Genesis chapter 6. And it talks about their ship, and we're going to go over what the Great White Lodge is, or the Great White Brotherhood is, that these books were given to us through. But just remember, long dwelt we in the land of Chem, long and yet long again, until obeying the commands of the Master, who while sleeping yet lives eternally, I sent from me the sons of Atlantis, sent them in many directions, that from the womb of time wisdom might rise again in her children. Long time dwelt I in the land of Chem, doing great works by the wisdom within me. Upward grew into the light of knowledge the children of Chem, watered by the rains of my wisdom. Blasted I then a path to Amenti, so that I might retain my powers, living from age to age a son of Atlantis, keeping the wisdom, preserving the records. Great grew the sons of Chem, conquering the people around them, growing slowly upwards in soul force. Now for a time I go from among them into the dark halls of Amenti, deep in the halls of the earth, before the lords of powers, face to face once again with the dweller. Raised I high over the entrance a doorway, a gateway leading down to Amenti. Few there would be with courage to dare it. Few past the portal to dark Amenti. Raised over the passage, I, a mighty pyramid. As you notice, there is a pyramid, or a triangle shape, in most symbols, most logos, most, ironically enough, logos. A mighty pyramid using the power that overcomes earth force, gravity. Deep and yet deeper place I a force house or chamber. From it carved I a circular passage reaching almost the great summit. There, in the apex, set I the crystals, sending the ray into the time-space, drawing the force from out of the ether, concentrating upon the gateway to Amenti. Other chambers I built and left vacant, to all seeming yet unhidden within them are the keys to Amenti. He who in courage would dare the dark realms, let him be purified first by long fasting. This was one of the keys to my visions that I had talked about, and that was before I had stumbled upon these. Let him be purified by long fasting. Lie in the sarcophagus of stone in my chamber. Then reveal I to him the great mysteries. Soon shall he be followed to where I shall meet him. Even in the darkness of earth shall I meet him. I, Thoth, Lord of Wisdom, meet him and hold him and dwell with him always. Builded I the great pyramid, patterned after the pyramid of earth force, burning eternally so that it too might remain through the ages. And as we all know, the earth force in the great pyramid is a representation of pi, or the prime meridian, 0-point gravity. So builded I the great pyramid patterned after the pyramid of earth force, burning eternally so that it too might remain through the ages. In it I builded my knowledge of magic science. That's what I was just speaking of, math. So that I might be here when again I return from Amenti. While I sleep in the halls of Amenti, my soul roaming free will incarnate. Dwell among men in this form or another, such as Hermes. Emissary on earth am I of the dweller, fulfilling his commands so many might be lifted. Now return I to the halls of Amenti, leaving behind me some of my wisdom. Preserve ye and keep ye the command of the dweller. Lift ever upwards your eyes towards the light. Surely in time ye are one with the Master. Surely by right ye are one with the Master. Surely by right yet are one with the All. Now I depart from ye. Know my commandments, keep them and be them. Keep them and be them, and I will be with you, helping and guiding you into the light. Now before me opens the portal. Go I down into the darkness of night. So there are many important things here that I'm just gonna try to skim through real quick. I would interpret betray not my secrets to the men of the north and the men of the south um, as being more or less the fallen angels that have taken refuge um, within the planet, the Hollow Earth. It is not just a theory. It's not some crazy whack job. I mean, World War II, Hitler found out about Agartha and the Hollow Earth, and had maps and sent his U-boats there. And that was one of his main focuses, was finding Atlantis, and that was the focus on Antarctica was. And that's why he sent the SS troops. Well, Himmler. That's why Himmler sent the SS troops to Tibet and all of the old countries to gather the old knowledge. Egypt, Tibet, all over. And they basically discovered, that the Earth is hollow. It isn't just something that was passed down word of mouth. That had just been distorted. This is true. So we'll get to the importance of that in a second. Wise were we with the wisdom of the children of light who dwelt among us. Strong were we with the power drawn from the eternal fire. The children of light are, in my viewpoint, the spirit guides which guide us, that exist all around us in higher frequencies, and they're the ones that we see as they're templates for us to assume of love and different positive vibrations. Um, we basically live vicariously through them, if you can understand what I mean. Meaning that each thought that you basically inject your consciousness into, when you think something, you are drawing yourself into something that had already existed before you physically existed. And the reason it exists, it's a collective of all the experience of the infinite all. And the children of light are is the voice and the voices of our ancestors. And if you want to consider it us in the future, like future, or if you want to consider us, the fact that we are back in time right now, that we are in physical being as spiritual beings. That's signified by the fall. But these children of light are angels in essence. But those that have not fallen, those that stick to the cycles, those that are still in servitude. And I say servitude for a reason. Mouthpiece after the three of the dweller of Unal. The three, the Trinity, the three. Positive, negative, neutral. The circuit, the energy. Speaking to the kings with the voice that must be obeyed. Now this is very direct and specific, saying speaking to the kings with the voice that must be obeyed. because the Logos is the voice that must be obeyed. We will get into this in a second. The voice that must be obeyed is because essentially Lucifer took his own self-will back and quit following the word and decided to take his own will and to be in servitude to God or the essence or the Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it, is to follow direction. It is to listen. It is to take direction, not make direction. Grew I there from a child and a man who had taught by my father the elder mysteries until in time grew within me the fire of wisdom until it burst into a consuming fire. Now, it talks about Amenti, where the great king sits upon his throne of might. Amenti is the life force of the earth, and at the very center of the earth, if some call it the black sun, there's many different names for it, but it is the soul. We are soul extensions of it. We are all connected to the dweller, and every planet is an entity, and every planet has an essence, and the vibration or the specific frequency of it talks about the burning flower, and that's a geometrical pattern. It's also the flower of life, or the most ancient symbol that has been found in every religion. It says, gradually from the kingdoms of Atlantis passed waves of consciousness that had been one with me, only to be replaced by the spawn of a lower star. And that's a pretty powerful statement there, meaning that we have been deluded, and it talks of this throughout the Bible. That's why the flood took place, because Noah found salvation in the eyes of the Lord, and that's because of his genealogy, his bloodline. And this is a very powerful statement, and this is one of the most important books that has ever been written. In obedience to the law, the word of the Master grew into a flower, downward into the darkness to turn the thoughts of the Atlanteans, until at last in his wrath rose he from his Aguanti, the dweller, speaking the word, calling the power. Deep in the earth's heart, the sons of Amenti heard and hearing, directing the changing of the flower of life that burns eternally, changing and shifting, using the logos, until the great fire had changed its direction. This is one of the most important statements that it says, because this is what I am talking about that is coming again. Okay, deep in the heart, the sons of Amenti heard and hearing, directing the changing of the flower of fire that burns eternally, changing and shifting, using the logos, until that great fire changed its direction from positive to negative. And there is a period of 0 point gravity, or what the pyramids represent, in between this changing. Because anything that passes from one state to another has to hit a point of status quo. So this is the reversal that took place from us, passing from the golden ages into the fall of man, which we are in now. And the fall of man is us using, our consciousness in a negative reversed field. I'll get more into this as well. Over the world then broke the great waters, the flood of Noah. See, this parallels everything in the Bible. It talks about how gradually from the kingdom of Atlantis passed waves of consciousness that had been one with me, only to be replaced by spawn of a lower star. Now it talks about in the Bible how the Nephilim, the sons of God, came into the daughters of men, and children were born unto them. The great heroes of old, men of renown. And, that's why the earth was flooded, because of these angels or these kings or great men started to reproduce with man, and this, or in other words, the spawn of a lower star. What they considered, the true humans that were to the earth as animals, more or less, without basically the intelligence that separates us from apes in obedience to the law. And then it talks about, this is just much more detailed than the Bible. And it talks about, the change in the energy or the vibration. And it talks about the redirecting of the energy, the fall. And then it talks about the flood. Over the world then broke the great waters, drowning and sinking, changing earth's balance, until only the temple of light was left, standing on the great mountain of Undal, still rising out of the water. Some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountains. Called to me them, then the master, saying, Gather ye my people, take them by the arch ye have learned, of far across the waters, until ye reach the land of the hairy barbarians, dwelling in caves of the desert. Follow there the plan that ye know of. And then he talks about, Gathered I then my people, and entered the great ship of the master. Upward we rose into the morning. Now this sounds a lot like Noah and the ark. Only difference is, this ship was not a boat. This ship was a ship, a light ship of basically the Galactic Federation or the Ashtar Command. And we'll get into that in a second as well. Dark beneath us lay the temple. Suddenly over it rose the waters, vanished from earth until the time appointed was the great temple. Fast we fled towards the sun of the morning. So the sun has been recorded rising in the east to the west, from the west to the east. And when the sun rises in the east, this was after the reverse. So it says, fast we fled toward the sun of the morning. So fast they fled to the east. And ironically enough, all of the Americas in the west, which would be the east of Egypt, would be, our desert. And it talks in the native histories of these hairy barbarians and, these men of the caves. And it just so happens there's a city in California that still exists today. And it's called Mount Shasta. And they talk of, basically this race of enlightened beings that live there, that live in basically a fifth dimensional reality, and many people have been in communication with. So fast we fled toward the sun of the morning until lay as the children of Chem. Then I raised my staff and directed a ray of vibration, striking them still in their tracks as fragments of stone. This is obviously, some sort of beam weapon or something. Then spoke to the eye in the words calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis, saying we were the children of the sun and its messengers. Cowed I them by my display of magic science, until at my feet they groveled when I released them. Now, saying we were the children of the sun, we are the children of the sun. Our heart is actually a star, and we exist as fragments of stars, and that's what we are. We are all stars, and some people's life force or light or essence is more powerful, more pure than others, because there's been a lot of interbreeding, there's been a lot of different species, there's been a lot of things that have taken place on the earth since these times. This talks about the education of the pharaohs and things like that. Then it talks about blasting a path to Amenti so that he can retain his powers, living from age to age as a son of Atlantis, keeping the wisdom, preserving the records. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. They talk about Shambhala and all these different. Every single religion and culture talks about an underworld, and great grew the sons of Chem, conquering the people around them. He talks about how he put a mighty pyramid using the power that overcomes Earth force or gravity. And if you look at NASA, their logo, the A's are a triangle, this pyramid. If you look at many logos, it's the Alpha and the Omega. Omega stands for ohms as well, and it is also energy. Alpha and Omega. These alpha waves. These are not coincidences. And it talks of the mighty pyramid that was using the power that overcomes Earth force or gravity. Gravity is one of the laws that it speaks about in the laws part of this. It talks about there in the apex set I the crystals, sending the ray into the time space, drawing the force from out of the ether, concentrating upon the gateway to Amenti. I mean, this is obviously technology. Other chambers I built and left vacant to all seeming, yet hidden within them are the keys to Amenti. He who in courage would dare the dark realms, let him be purified first by long fasting. Now I spoke, in my videos about the day that I had received the visions that showed me what was to come, and basically the template that I was given of all the events that have happened and that are going to happen was after I had fasted for a considerable amount of days. And I believe it was 4 days and 4 days. I had fasted for 4 days, and I had prophesied for 4 days. Fasting is one of the keys, because fasting is starving the physical body of life, and it allows us to perceive death, or it allows us to basically untether from this anchor that keeps us in this physical realm. It allows us to perceive things that we wouldn't normally be able to perceive, because when we eat food, when we're healthy and we have food in us, food is energy. Food is a life force from another living sentient creature or being. And we basically absorb the life force from other beings for us to sustain. So when we no longer consume other entities for our own energy, for our own survival, our life force begins to start draining. And the life force that I talk of is our physical connection to this realm. Our physical bodies need to be sustained by sustenance. Our spiritual bodies live forever. We sustain on energy, um, in a different sense of the word. In the physical reality, energy is converted through, just like a plant, with photosynthesis. It's similar to how humans, when we eat. So through fasting is shutting down the devil, basically, or the negative energy that runs your thinking in this physical realm. So fasting is very important to remember and to purify. And it talks about the dark realms. He who encouraged would dare the dark realms. As I talked about in my visions, coming to this portal or this gateway, in which I had seen that all that stands between is the reversal of our heartbeat. The fear of death is the only thing that keeps us alive. The only thing that keeps your heart beating is the fear of death. So essentially, we are grounded by the fear of death. And that is why when, elderly people are dying in the nursing home and they fight it and they fight it and they stay alive, and then when they are at ease and when they just give up and they don't fight anymore and they their mind's cleared and their conscience is cleared, they just let go and they die. And that is why, because we can will ourselves to stay alive. There's people who get shot 20 times and there's people who get shot once. The people who get shot once die, the people who get shot 20 times will themselves to live. There's, different stories all over. But the fact is that the only thing that keeps us alive is the fear of death. So once you overcome that fear of death and you pass into, it's like the metamorphosis from a caterpillar into a butterfly. Once you emerge from that chrysalis and you become the butterfly that is shedding the physical body, and by shedding the physical body, you shed the fear that keeps you alive. And while we're alive, we will always have that fear. That's the basis in our existence, and it always will be. That was the fall of man. That was the creation of man. That was, what the Luciferians call, basically, or Satan falling from the heavens, was taking, his own will back. And by using that will, we have a choice to use negative or positive energy. So, lie in the sarcophagus of my stone chamber. This ceremony has been performed with numerous presidents, numerous Illuminati high ranking officials. I mean, this is a very well known. This is done to this day within the Great Pyramid. Builded out of the Great Pyramid, patterned after the Pyramid of Earth Force, burning eternally so that it too might remain through the ages. It was patterned after the Pyramid of Earth Force. That's why the 6-point star has such significance, because that is essentially, triangles, and it starts with the flower of life. And in the vision that I had seen with the with the chevron, with the triangle, with basically the circle at the top, or it's also the all-seeing eye triangle that's depicted on the pyramid with the dollar bill. Emissary on Earth, that also represents the Trinity and multiple different things, just to make it clear. Okay. Now there's just so much here. And it really should have just gone down and just broke it down by what I see, but in order to understand this, there's some other things that you need to understand. So first of all, we're going to go and look up what this Great White Lodge is, where this information comes from, because there is, as I said, a lot of information. This is probably the most important video that you will watch in your life, because this is the real truth. This is behind the Satanists and the Luciferians and the Illuminati and the spirituality and all the religions and all the aliens, and this is what lies behind all of it. So this is Wikipedia's definition of the Great White Brotherhood, or the Order of Melchizedek. The Great White Brotherhood and belief systems akin to the Theosophical and New Age are said to be supernatural beings of great power who spread spiritual teachings through selected humans. The members of the Brotherhood may be known as the Masters of the Ancient Wisdom, or the Ascended Masters. The first person to talk about them was Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. And if you remember who she was during the whole, SS, and she was a main figure in all this metaphysical stuff. And after she and other people claimed to have received messages from them, these included Aleister Crowley, Alice Bailey, Guy Ballard, Geraldine Innocent, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, and Benjamin Creme. Michelle Small-Wright has written extensively about the Brotherhood and her communication and work with them. History. The idea of a secret organization of enlightened mystics guiding the spiritual development of the human race was pioneered in the late 18th century by Karl von Echtenhausen in his book Cloud Upon the Sanctuary. Eckhart Schaschen called this body of mystics, who remained active after their physical deaths on Earth, the Council of Light. Some of you may be familiar with this Galactic Federation of Light, or the higher self channel, or a lot of these spiritual channeled readers and messages. Pay attention. Proposed communion of living and dead mystics. In turn, drew partially on Christian ideas, such as the communion of the saints, and partially on preventing circulating European ideas about secret societies of enlightenment, mystical or magic adepts typified by the Rosicrucians and the Illuminati. The Mahatma letters began publication in 1881 with information purportedly revealed by Kut Humi to Alfred Percy Sinnett, and were also influential on the early development of the tradition. Kut Humi, through Sinnett, revealed that high-ranking members of mystic organizations in India and Tibet were able to maintain regular telepathic contact with one another, and thus were able to communicate to each other and also to Sinnett, without the need for either written or oral communications, and in a manner similar to the way that spirit mediums claim to communicate with the spirits of the dead. The letters published by Sinnett, which proposed the controversial doctrine of reincarnation, were said to have been revealed through this means. Eckhart Schassen's idea was expanded in the teachings of Helena P. Blavatsky as developed by Charles W. Leadbeater, Alice Bailey, and Helena Roerich. Blavatsky, founder of the Theosophical Society, attributed her teachings to such body of adepts in her 1877 book, Isis Unveiled. She called the revealers of her teachings the Masters of the Hidden Brotherhood, or the Mahatmas. Blavatsky claimed that she had made physical contact with these adepts earthly representatives in Tibet, but also that she continued to receive teachings from them through psychic channels through her abilities of spiritual mediumship. Ideas about this secret council of sages under several names were a widely shared feature of late 19th century and early 20th century esotericism. Arthur Edward Waite, in his 1898 book of Black Magic and of Pacts, hinted at the existence of a secret group of initiates who dispensed truth and wisdom to the worthy. A young Aleister Crowley, reading this, wrote Waite and was directed to read von Echtenschossen's book. Crowley's search for this secret wisdom eventually led him to become a neophyte in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Hermes Trismegistus, or Thoth. So Crowley was a neophyte in Thoth's mystery school. The Order of the Golden Dawn, which represented itself to be the visible and earthly outer order of the Great White Brotherhood. Within the Golden Dawn itself, its teachings claimed to be derived from a similar body of initiates, which in that tradition were called the Secret Chiefs. The actual phrase Great White Brotherhood was used extensively in Leadbeater's 1925 book, The Masters in the Path. Alice A. Bailey also claimed to have received numerous revelations from the Great White Brotherhood between 1920 and 1949, which are compiled in her books known collectively by her followers as the Alice A. Bailey material. Since the introduction of the phrase, the term Great White Brotherhood is in some circles used generically to refer to any concept of an enlightened community of adepts on Earth or in the hereafter, with benevolent aims towards spiritual development of the human race, and without strict regard to the names used within the tradition. Dion Fortune adopts the name to refer to the community of living and dead adepts. The ritual magicians of the Western mystery tradition sometimes refer to the Great White Brotherhood as the Great White Lodge, a name that appears to indicate that they imagine its constituents and initiatory hierarchies similar to Freemasonry. Gareth Knight describes its members as the Masters or Inner Plane Adepti, who have gained all the experience and all the wisdom resulting from experience necessary for their physical experience necessary for their spiritual evolution in the worlds of form. While some go on to higher evolution in other spheres, others become teaching masters who stay behind to help younger initiates in their cyclic evolution on this planet. It's very important. Cyclic evolution on this planet. Only a few of this community are known to the human race. These initiates are the teaching masters. The Amorg. Come on, we'll get going. Rosicrucian order maintains a difference between the Great White Brotherhood and the Great White Lodge, saying that the Great White Brotherhood is the school or fraternity of the Great White Lodge, and that every true student on the path aspires to membership in this brotherhood. Some of Aleister Crowley's remarks appear to indicate that Crowley identified the Great White Brotherhood with the AA, his magical secret society. Bulgarian Gnostic master Peter Dunov referred to this organization of followers as the Universal White Brotherhood, and it is clear that he too was referring to the Western esoteric community at large. When excommunicated as a heretic on 7th of July 1922, he defended the Brotherhood as follows. Let the Orthodox Church resolve this issue, whether Christ has risen, whether love is accepted in the Orthodox Church. There is one church in the world, but the Universal White Brotherhood is outside the Church. It is higher than the Church, but even higher than the Universal White Brotherhood is the Kingdom of Heaven. Hence the Church is the first step, the Universal White Brotherhood is the second step, and the Kingdom of Heaven is the third step, the greatest one that is to be manifested. Now if you notice, religion and all of this Aleister Crowley and all these evil things from the Luciferian doctrine are all being incorporated here. This is, combines the kingdom of heaven is all high, and it's just pay attention to where this is leading. Similarly, Bulgarian teacher Amram Michael Ivanov, Dunov's principal disciple, formally established Fraternity Blanche Universae as an esoteric esoteric organization still operating today in Switzerland, Canada, the USA, the UK, and parts of Scandinavia. The term Great White Brotherhood was further developed and popularized in 1934 with the publication of Unveiled Mysteries by Guy Ballard's I Am activity. This brotherhood of immortal saints and sages who have gone through the initiations of the Transfiguration, Resurrection, and the Ascension was further popularized by Ascended Master teachings developed by the Bridge to Freedom, the Summit Lighthouse, and the Church Universal and Triumphant, and the Temple of the Presence. Benjamin Creme has published books he claims the information within them has been telepathically transmitted to him from the Great White Brotherhood. The founding of the Great White Brotherhood. In 1952, Geraldine Innocente, messenger for the Bridge to Freedom, delivered this address purported to be from Sanat Kumara. Now, Sanat Kumara is one of the main ascended masters that are channeled by these channels, such as Higher Self and Matt Muckleroy, and all of the different channels that post on the Galactic Federation of Light, or Ashtar Command, basically. Keep that in mind, because this is where you're going to start, learning some things that are going to flip your world upside down. Describing the founding of the Great White Brotherhood. I had nothing to work with but light and love. Now you see how this is going. This is the Great White Brotherhood. It's talking about light and love and Jesus and church and heaven and all these things. I had nothing to work with but light and love, and many centuries passed before even 2 life streams applied for membership. One later became Buddha, now Lord of the World, the planetary Logos, Gautama Buddha, and the other became the Cosmic Christ, Lord Maitreya, now the planetary Buddha. The Brotherhood has grown through these ages and centuries until almost all of the offices are held now by those belonging to the evolution of Earth, and those who have volunteered to remain among her evolution. That's very important. By those now belonging to the evolution of Earth, and those who have volunteered to remain among her evolution. Members of the Bridge to Freedom believe that on July 4th, 1954, Sanat Kumara stated through Geraldine Innocent, "Thus we took our abode upon the sweet earth, through the same power of centripetal and centrifugal force of which I spoke, cohesion and expansion of the magnetic power of divine love. We then began to magnetize the flame in the hearts of some of the guardian spirits who are not sleeping so soundly and who are not too enthusiastically engaged in using primal life for the satisfaction of the personal self. In this way the Great White Brotherhood began, the threefold flame within the heart of Shambhala, within the hearts of the Kumaras and myself, formed the magnetic heart of the Great White Brotherhood, by whom you have all been blessed, and by which brotherhood you are all aspire to become conscious members." Now, this talks again of the threefold flame, or the threefold triangle within the hearts of the Kumaras and myself, or the Trinity, formed the magnetic heart. Okay, these are very important. The Great White Brotherhood, also known as Great Brotherhood of Light or the Spiritual Hierarchy of Earth, is perceived as a spiritual organization composed of those ascended masters who have risen from the earth into immortality, but still maintain an active watch over the world. C.W. Leadbeater said that the Great White Brotherhood also includes members of the heavenly host, or angels, the spiritual hierarchy directly concerned with the evolution of our world. Beneficent members from other planets that are interested in our welfare, as well as certain unascended chelas. The masters of the ancient wisdom are believed by Theophilus to be joined together in service to the earth under the name of the Great White Brotherhood. The use of the term white refers to their use of white magic as opposed to black, and is unrelated to race. The later versions of Blavatsky describe the masters as ethnically Tibetan or Indian, Hindu, not European, Recent skeptical research indicates, however, that this description was used by Blavatsky to hide the real identity of her teachers, some of whom are said to have really been well known Indian rulers or personalities of her time. Most occult groups assign a high level of importance to the Great White Brotherhood, but some make interaction with the Ascended Masters of the Brotherhood a major focus of their existence. Of these, several, the most prominent, are the I Am activity founded in the 1930s, the Bridge to Freedom, the Church Universal and Triumphant, and the Temple of the Presence. Belief in the Brotherhood and the Masters, an essential part of the synchristic teachings of various organizations that have continued and expanded the philosophical concepts. Information given by the Summit Lighthouse and the I Am movement is suspect, since none of the writers of these groups are masters of any brotherhood. Examples of those believed to be ascended masters would be, according to different unconfirmed sources, are the Master Jesus, Confucius, Gautama Buddha, Mother Mary of Jesus, Hilarion, another one of these channels, Enoch, Paul the Venetian, Kuan Yin, another one, Saint Germain, and Cthulhu. All of these names are all of the names of the sources for people such as Natalie Glasson or Christine Preston or Miss Lai, and just multiple other channels. There's a reason for this. The Great White Brotherhood is the name given to in some metaphysical circles of a depth of wisdom, and so if you'd like to continue reading more on this article, this is right on Wiki, so you can Google it there. So that's the Wiki definition, which is the commercialized bullshit aspect, the glossy, nice, make it pretty for everyone. So the Great White Brotherhood is also known as the Order of Melchizedek. Okay, it is the Order of Melchizedek, the Great White Lodge, the Brotherhood of the White Lodge. They're synonymous, and it talks about in the Bible the Order of Melchizedek. So, and Melchizedek is also where Drunvalo Melchizedek took his name, who wrote the book The Flower of Life, who claims to have had teachings from Thoth. And it is also the name that these channelers use in reporting these messages of ascension and higher consciousness and awareness. So, who was Melchizedek? Well, let's take a look. Melchizedek, whose name means King of Righteousness, was a king of Salem, Jerusalem, and priest of the Most High God. Melchizedek's sudden appearance and disappearance in the book of Genesis is somewhat mysterious. Melchizedek and Abraham first met after Abraham's defeat of Kedorlaomer. Now, I had a vision months ago where I had reported about Kedorlaomer. It wasn't necessarily Kedar, it was Laomer. And it came to me in one of my visions, Laomer, with some other Jewish words that I had no idea what they meant. And I'm going to have to go back and actually find them and see exactly what it was. But I didn't know that this Laomer had anything to do with Melchizedek until I read all this, which blew my mind because this was, it's just the synchronicities. So anyway, Abraham's defeat of Kedorlaomer and his 3 allies. Melchizedek presented bread and wine to Abraham and his weary men, demonstrating friendship. He bestowed a blessing on Abraham in the name of El Elyon, God Most High, and praised God for giving Abraham a victory in battle. Abraham presented Melchizedek with a tithe a tenth of all the items he had gathered. By this act, Abraham indicated that he recognized the Melchizedek as a priest who ranked higher spiritually than him. Abraham, okay, son of, or father of David, line of David. This is, this is Abraham that we're talking about as recognizing that Melchizedek was a priest who ranked higher spiritually than he by giving him tribute of a tenth or a tithe of all the items that he had gathered in his crusade, basically. Now, in Psalms 110, a messianic psalm written by David, Melchizedek is presented as a type of Christ. This theme is repeated in the book of Hebrews, where both Melchizedek and Christ are considered kings of righteousness and peace. By citing Melchizedek and his unique priesthood as a type, the writer shows that Christ's new priesthood is superior to the old Levitical order and the priesthood of Aaron. Some propose that Melchizedek was actually a pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus Christ, or a Christophany. It's funny. This is possible theory given that Abraham had received such a visit before. Consider Genesis 17, where Abraham saw and spoke with the Lord, El Shaddai, in the form of a man. Hebrews 6:20 says, Jesus has become a high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. It says in the Bible that Jesus has become a high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Hebrews 6:20. This term, order, would ordinarily indicate a succession of priests holding the office. None are ever mentioned. However, in the long interval from Melchizedek to Christ, an anomaly that can be solved by assuming that Melchizedek and Christ are really the same person. Thus, the order is eternally vested in him and him alone. Now, if you remember in the wiki definition, it just said that the order of Melchizedek is this order of ascended masters, giving Jesus by name and Melchizedek. Hebrews 7:3 says that Melchizedek was without father or mother, without genealogy, without beginning of days or end of life. Resembling the Son of God, he remains a priest forever. The question is whether the author of the Hebrews means this actually or figuratively. If the description in Hebrews is literal, then it is indeed difficult to see how it could properly apply to anyone but the Lord Jesus Christ. No mere earthly king remains a priest forever, and no mere human is without father or mother. If Genesis 14 describes a theophany, then God, the Son, came to give Abraham his blessing, Genesis 14:17-9, appearing as the King of righteousness, Revelation 19:11-6, the King of peace, Isaiah 9:6, and the mediator between God and man, or Melchizedek, the mediator between God and man. If the description of Melchizedek is figurative, then the details of having no genealogy, no beginning or ending, and ceaseless ministry are simply statements accentuating the mysterious nature of the person who met Abraham. In this case, the silence of the Genesis account concerning these details is purposeful and better serves to link Melchizedek with Christ. Are Melchizedek and Jesus the same person? A case can be made either way. At the very least, Melchizedek is a type of Christ, prefiguring the Lord's ministry, but it also is possible that Abraham, after his weary battle, met and gave honor to the Lord Jesus himself through Melchizedek. One more. Melchizedek, also spelled Melchizedek in the Old Testament, a figure of importance in biblical tradition because he was both king and priest. He was connected with Jerusalem and was revered by Abraham, who paid a tithe to him. He appears as a person only in an interpolated vignette of the story of Abraham rescuing his kidnapped nephew Lot by defeating a coalition of Mesopotamian kings under Kedorlaomer. In the episode, Melchizedek meets Abraham on his return from battle, gives him bread and wine, which has been interpreted by some Christian scholars as a precursor of the Eucharist, so that Melchizedek's name entered the canon of the Roman Mass, and blesses Abraham in the name of God Most High, in Hebrew Al Elyon. In return, Abraham gives him a tithe of the booty. Melchizedek is an old Canaanite name meaning my king is the God, Sedek, or my king is righteousness. The meaning of the similar Hebrew Konye, Salem, of which he is said to be king, is very probably Jerusalem. Psalm 76:2 refers to Salem in a way that implies that it is synonymous with Jerusalem, and that the reference in Genesis 14:17 to the King's Valley further confirms this identification. The god whom Melchizedek serves as priest is Elion, again a name of a Canaanite origin, probably designating the high god of their pantheon. Later, the Hebrews adapted another Canaanite name as an appellation for God. For Abraham to recognize the authority and authenticity of a Canaanite priest king is startling and has no parallel in biblical literature. The story may have reached its final formulation in the days of King David, serving as an apologia for David's making Jerusalem his headquarters and setting up the priesthood there. Abraham's paying tribute to a Jerusalem priest king then would anticipate the time when Abraham's descendants would bring tithes to the priests of Jerusalem ministering in the sanctuary at the Davidic capital. The story may also relate to the conflict between the Levite priests descended from Abraham and the Zodokite priests of Jerusalem, who later changed their allegiance to Yahweh, the Hebrew God. The Zodokites monopolized the Jerusalem priesthood until forcibly taken away to Babylon, at which time Levite priests asserted their own hegemony. The Melchizedek episode could reveal the rescendancy of the Zodokite power. The biblical account also poses textual problems. Abraham paying a tithe to Melchizedek is an interpretation, though a likely one, of the original biblical text, in which the matter is ambiguous. It seems incongruous that Abraham gives a tenth of the booty to Melchizedek and then refuses to take any of it for himself, verses 22 to 23. Again, some scholars have asserted that it would be unusual for an author of Davidic times to construct a narrative with a Canaanite protagonist. Psalm 110, in referring to a future Messiah of the Davidic line, Jesus, alludes to the priest king Melchizedek as a prototype of this Messiah. So they're saying that Melchizedek is a prototype of Jesus. This allusion led the author of the letter to the Hebrews in the New Testament to translate the name Melchizedek as King of Righteousness and Salem as peace, so that Melchizedek is made to foreshadow Christ, stated to be the true king of righteousness and peace, Hebrews 7:2, according to the analogy, just as Abraham, the ancestor of the Levites, paid tithes to Melchizedek and therefore was his inferior. So the Melchizedek-like priesthood of Christ is superior to that of the Levites. Furthermore, just as the Old Testament assigns no birth or death date to Melchizedek, so is the priesthood of Christ eternal. So now you have a better understanding of who Melchizedek is and what the relation to the Great White Lodge is. You might want to come and check this page out. This is dedicated to basically the Great White Lodge. This is called Biblioteca Pleiades. Biblioteca Pleiades. It's kind of spelled crazy, but you can see it right here. I'll put the links underneath. But here is the Ashtar Command, the airborne division of the Great White Brotherhood. The Great White Brotherhood, the lost city of Aramu Maru, notes about the White Brotherhood, the Babylonian Brotherhood, and the Great White Brotherhood. There are many in here that describe what this order is. But essentially, what this order is, keep in mind, Aleister Crowley and who is considered the most evil man in history by Time magazine and multiple different other things, and who had many close ties to Churchill and just the royal families and all the stuff that's going on with this Illuminati worshiping and the sacrifice of children and all this satanic worship and ritual, all this Luciferian doctrine. Now, this is where I'm going to cut it and go into part two, um, because there's some other things I need to do, and we're about at an hour right now. So tomorrow night I will continue where we left off, and that's where we're gonna get interesting, because I'm gonna start putting these pieces together for you, and show you, the origin and the root of all of this and how it's relevant today. And I mean, this is the overall picture. This is people search for these truths for their entire lives and do not find them. So look for part two tomorrow, and we'll continue where we left off with the Emerald Tablets and the Great White Brotherhood and the Order of Melchizedek, and the truth and what's going on. Stay vigilant, stay tuned.